I will be presenting the Scott Peterson trial, which was covered by media for approximately 2 years. The coverage started with the initial disappearance in December 2002 and followed nearly non-stop through Peterson's conviction in November 2004, with many things still being presented about him even today, a decade after the conclusion. On December 24, 2002, Scott Peterson claimed he was unable to locate his wife, Lacey Peterson, after he returned from a fishing trip. They were currently living in Modesto, California, and expecting their first child the preceding February. The disappearance of a young, affluent, pregnant white female gained national coverage almost immediately. Following Lacey's disappearance, multiple search parties searched the area around the Peterson home with no luck. Eventually, the search was spread outside of the town, including the marina where Scott had been, but there was still no trace of Lacey. During this time, it was discovered that Scott had taken a $250,000 life insurance policy out against Lacey around the time she became pregnant. Information also came to light that Scott Peterson was having an affair with Amber Fry. Peterson had told her he had recently lost his wife and was traveling out of state at the time he reported Lacey missing. Upon learning of Lacey's case and Scott's connection with it, she presented herself to authorities. This affair and the insurance claim shifted blame to Scott. Amber was wired for evidence against him. On April 13 and 14, 2003, a male fetus and decapitated and dismembered female body, respectively, were discovered along the shores of San Francisco Bay, the same area in which Scott had been boating the day of Lacey's disappearance. The bodies are identified of that of Lacey Peterson and her baby, which the Petersons had discussed naming Connor. On April 21, 2003, Scott Peterson is charged with 2 counts of felony murder with premeditation and special circumstances. The special circumstances allowed the prosecution to seek the death penalty upon conviction. Peterson entered a not guilty plea, which sent him through a trial that was covered by the media for 1.5 years. In January 2004, the defense filed a change of venue motion with the Modesto courts in order to ensure a fair trial for Peterson. The abundance of media coverage was thought to taint the possibility of finding unbiased jurors. The judge granted this motion and moved the case to San Mateo County Criminal Courthouse as an attempt to find jurors who would not be affected by the media coverage. Due to the massive media coverage, a gag order is put in place to help further the possibility of Peterson receiving a fair trial. Jurors were also picked based upon how much knowledge they already had about the case from publicity coverage. A couple of jurors who were chosen had to be replaced by alternatives due to media leaks linked back to them. The judge in San Mateo County put in place an order of closed courts. The news and any use of photography or video is not allowed within the courtroom. The judge does not want the trial to be tainted by theatrics that could be caused with the media presence. However, this does not stop the media from crowding the courthouse and covering the story without actually hearing any actual testimony. On November 12, 2004, Scott Peterson is found guilty of felony first-degree murder for the death of Lacey Peterson under the motive of a desire to be single without losing money to Lacey. He is also found guilty of second-degree murder for the death of their unborn son. The count of murder for his son falls under California's fetal homicide statute because the fetus was older than 8 weeks. On December 13, 2004, a jury recommends a sentence of Peterson to death. On March 16, 2005, a judge formally sentenced Scott Peterson to death by lethal injection, calling the murder cruel, uncaring, heartless, and callous. He is currently serving his sentence on death row in San Quentin State Prison, awaiting his automatic appeal to be reviewed within California's State Supreme Court. Following Scott Peterson's conviction in 2004, a judge ordered that Lacey Peterson's life insurance policy payout of $250,000 be awarded to her mother, Sharon Rocha, and stepfather Ron Gransky. Scott was also ordered to pay an additional $10,000 of his estate to Lacey's family to cover her funeral costs. Anyone who is sentenced to death receives an automatic appeal process to make sure nothing is compromised during the case before actually administering the death penalty. Peterson's attorney has filed many documents as to reasons for wrongful conviction. One reason he has included is that the media, even though it was not allowed in the courtroom, had a negative influence on the outcome. The Scott Peterson case would be a media trial for many reasons, the main factor being that it was covered by the media nearly non-stop for over a year. Starting with Lacey's disappearance, all the way through to Scott's conviction, there was not a news channel, magazine, or newspaper that was not covering some angle of this trial, often being coined as a soap opera. There was also books and movies based off the events. As I mentioned earlier, the disappearance of a young, affluent, pregnant white female was a reason that the case gained national coverage almost immediately. Once the blame was shifted to her husband, the media became even more interested. Upon the case becoming a murder trial of a traditional family man killing his wife and unborn child due to extramarital affairs, the media could not resist covering this trial. The Scott Peterson trial would fall under an evil strangers category, more specifically, that of a psychotic killer. Scott Peterson fits as a psychotic killer for murdering his wife, but more importantly for killing his 8-month pregnant wife and disposing of her body in the San Francisco Bay. It may be argued that Scott Peterson would be a psychotic killer also because his motives were simply that he wanted to be single again and pursue his affairs freely. The Scott Peterson trial fits best into the crime and justice frame of social breakdown. The social breakdown frame discusses that crime is caused based on family and community breakdown. This category includes decrease in family values, which would be supported by Peterson's extramarital affairs, as well as his motives of Lacey's death of wanting to be single. The trial also fits in his social breakdown frame for Peterson's other motive of money, seeing that he did not seek divorce because he would be required to share his assets with Lacey and their child. Peterson may have also committed the murders as an escape for his growing debts, which would have increased with the birth of their child and decreased with a life insurance claim.